The Zodiac Killer. The unsolved serial killings in the San Francisco Bay Area during the late 1960s and early 1970s. In the late 1960s and early 1970s, a chilling enigma emerged from the shadows in the lively city of San Francisco. A mysterious figure, known only as the Zodiac Killer, cast a menacing pall over the Bay Area, haunting its residents with a string of unsolved serial killings. The tale of the Zodiac Killer is one covered in cryptic messages, unsolved crimes, and a legacy of fear that lingers to this day. Join us as we delve into the perplexing narrative of a criminal who puzzled investigators, leaving a riddle that remains tantalizingly unanswered. Before we move ahead, spare a moment and subscribe to our channel. Who was the Zodiac Killer? During the late 1960s and early 1970s, the San Francisco Bay Area was a cradle of cultural revolution and social change. Amidst this backdrop of counterculture and activism, emerged a dark and enigmatic figure, the Zodiac Killer. This unidentified serial killer instilled fear and terror into the hearts of many, leaving a trail of gruesome murders and cryptic clues that have puzzled investigators for decades. The reign of terror began in the late 1960s, and the Zodiac Killer is believed to have committed at least 5 confirmed murders between 1968 and 1969. The victims were often young couples enjoying a peaceful evening, only to have their lives abruptly ended by this elusive and sadistic killer. One of the most infamous aspects of the Zodiac case was his encrypted letters sent to various newspapers. The killer devised complex ciphers, which added an element of psychological torment to his crimes. The Zodiac seemed to relish the idea of toying with authorities and the public, leaving them struggling to decode his cryptic puzzles. While some of these ciphers were eventually solved, others have remained a mystery, deepening the conspiracy surrounding the case. The murders. Lake Herman Road murders, December 20th, 1968. The first set of killings attributed to the Zodiac Killer occurred on the night of December 20th, 1968, on a desolate stretch of Lake Herman Road near Vallejo, California. This incident marked the beginning of a series of gruesome murders and became the first in a string of horrifying events carried out by the enigmatic and elusive Zodiac Killer. The victims of these killings were Betty Lou Jensen, 16 years old, a high school student known for her friendly and outgoing nature, and David Faraday, 17 years old, a well-liked high school student and athlete. On the night of the murders, Betty Lou Jensen and David Faraday decided to spend time together and parked Faraday's station wagon on a remote, dimly lit gravel turnout along Lake Herman Road. It was a popular spot for young couples to socialize, but that evening turned out to be anything but ordinary. Around 10:15 p.m., an unidentified assailant approached their car. The killer fired multiple shots at close range into the vehicle, brutally gunning down both Betty Lou Jensen and David Faraday. Subsequent investigations revealed that Jensen was struck 5 times in the back, while Faraday suffered a close-range shot to the head. The motive behind this senseless act remained a mystery, plunging the community into fear and confusion. The bodies were discovered by a passing motorist a few hours later, at around 11 p.m. Law enforcement officers were promptly notified and rushed to the crime scene, launching an intensive investigation into this horrifying event. In the wake of the murders, the community grappled with shock and fear, and the Zodiac's cryptic messages to local newspapers and the use of ciphers added a layer of complexity, creating an aura of terror that would persist for years to come. Blue Rock Springs attacks, July 4th, 1969. The Blue Rock Springs attack, which took place on the night of July 4th, 1969, was a pivotal event in the series of killings attributed to the notorious Zodiac Killer during the late 60s and early 70s. The victims in this case were Michael Mageau, 19 years old, who survived the attack but sustained serious injuries, and Darlene Ferrin, 22 years old, who was fatally shot during the attack. The night of July 4th, 1969, began as a celebratory one for Darlene Ferrin and Michael Mageau. They spent the evening together, enjoying Independence Day festivities before heading to Blue Rock Springs Park in Vallejo, California, a popular spot for locals to relax and socialize. Around 11 p.m., while parked in a secluded area of the park, an unidentified individual pulled up beside their car. Moments later, the assailant opened fire on them, shooting multiple rounds into their vehicle. Michael McGew was struck several times but survived the attack, although he suffered severe injuries. Tragically, Darlene Ferrin did not survive the onslaught and succumbed to her injuries at the scene. Within minutes of the shooting, a young couple who had heard the gunshots discovered McGew and Ferrin. They promptly called the police, who arrived at the scene and initiated an investigation into this blatant crime. During the attack, the assailant made a call to the local police claiming responsibility for the crime and mentioned details that only the killer would know.
1 mile east on Columbus Parkway, the public park, you'll find kids in a brown car. They were shot with a 9mm Luger. I also killed those kids last year. Goodbye.
This phone call is a chilling aspect of the case, illustrating the Zodiac Killer's desire for notoriety and fear-inducing tactics. Lake Berryessa stabbings, September 27, 1969. The Lake Berryessa stabbings, which occurred on September 27, 1969, were a gruesome and infamous event linked to the unreachable Zodiac Killer. This incident was marked by its chilling nature and the killer's bold act of branding his victims with a distinctive symbol. The victims of this case were Brian Hartnell, 20 years old, who suffered multiple stab wounds but survived the attack, and Cecilia Shepard, 22 years old, who was fatally stabbed during the attack. On a sunny day at Lake Berryessa, a popular recreation spot in Napa County, California, Brian Hartnell and Cecilia Shepard were enjoying a peaceful afternoon by the lake. Their tranquility was shattered when a man later known to be the Zodiac Killer approached them wearing a black executioner-style hood with a symbol on his chest and a knife in his hand. The assailant tied them up and proceeded to stab them repeatedly. During this horrifying ordeal, the assailant made it clear that he intended to murder them. After the brutal attack, he drew a symbol on Hartnell's car door, now infamous as the Zodiac symbol, with the dates of previous attacks and the phrase Vallejo and 12/20/68, signifying the date of the Lake Herman Road shootings. Following the attack, Hartnell managed to provide a description of the assailant and details of the incident to the authorities before seeking help. Despite their efforts to save her, Cecilia Shepard succumbed to her injuries. San Francisco cab driver murder, October 11, 1969. The San Francisco cab driver murder on October 11, 1969 was a shocking and pivotal event in the series of unsolved murders attributed to the notorious Zodiac Killer, a figure that struck fear into the hearts of the San Francisco Bay Area during the late 60s and early 1970s. The victim of this case is Paul Stein, 29 years old, the unfortunate cab driver who lost his life in this brutal attack. On a fateful October night in 1969, Paul Stein, a 29-year-old cab driver, picked up a passenger in San Francisco. The passenger requested to be driven to a specific destination. However, shortly after the journey began, the situation took a sinister turn. For reasons unknown, the passenger turned out to be the infamous Zodiac Killer. He pulled out a 9mm Luger and shot Stein multiple times, resulting in the cab crashing into a nearby streetlight. The killer then proceeded to take a piece of Stein's blood-soaked shirt as a trophy before fleeing the scene. The macabre act became a morbid trademark of the Zodiac Killer. This murder sent shockwaves through the community, not only due to its brutality, but also because it happened in a more public setting compared to the secret locations of the previous attacks. Lake Tahoe murders. The Lake Tahoe murders are a haunting set of crimes that remain largely unconfirmed and mysterious, adding to the chilling legacy of the Zodiac Killer. Donna Lass, a nurse who mysteriously disappeared in 1970, is among the potential victims associated with this ominous chapter. Donna Lass, a nurse at the time, disappeared on September 6, 1970 from South Lake Tahoe, California. She was last seen leaving work at the Sahara Hotel and Casino. Her car was found parked near her apartment complex, and inside her apartment, there were indications of a struggle with personal items scattered about. The possible connection between Donna Lass and the Zodiac Killer stems from a mysterious postcard received by the San Francisco Chronicle on March 22, 1971. The postcard contained a cryptic message and a map detailing a location near the Lake Tahoe area. The map seemed to hint at a place where Donna Lass disappeared. The author of the postcard claimed responsibility for her disappearance, suggesting that she had become one of his victims. However, the exact connection between Donna Lass's disappearance and the Zodiac Killer remains uncertain, and there is no concrete evidence linking him to this crime. The mysteriousness surrounding Donna Lass's case and the potential connection to the Zodiac Killer has only added to the perplexing report of the unsolved crimes during that era. The haunting question remains: who was the Zodiac Killer? And will the truth ever come to light? The enigmatic tale persists, an unsettling reminder of a dark chapter in American criminal history, where a mystery killer left a trail of unsolved crimes and unanswered questions, forever etching his name into the annals of true crime. If you liked the video, then subscribe to our channel for more haunting videos.